Welcome to the 1% Doctor Podcast. What separates the good from the great, the standard from the extraordinary? It's mindset, it's execution, and it's the relentless pursuit of growth. I'm Adam Lamb. I'm your host. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the 1% Doctor Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Lamb. Today, we have a very special guest, lovely woman, good friend of mine, Dr. Sabrina Gya. Dr. Sabrina, thank you for being on the show. Excited for this conversation. You're an amazing woman, a very spirit-driven woman. So, the level of conversations we get to have are so enlightening for me. And I'm excited for our guests and listeners to hear your story, and just as the conversation unfolds, I think there's going to be a lot of value for them to take away hearing about your story and the conversation we'll have. So tell us a little bit, what got you into medicine, and give us a little background on who is Sabrina.
First of all, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you. I always just love our conversations. They are always very profound and elevating. What brought me into the health field was actually, again, it's a God thing. It's a spiritual God thing story. I was 9 years old and I was sitting in the living room with my dad, and we had the TV on. The news was on. This was in the UK. I'm from the UK originally. The TV was on, the news was on mute. And all I saw, and don't ask me where it came from, because all I can say was it was a God thing, because all I saw was a man standing next to another man who was lying on what seemed to be a massage table, or just lying face down. And I turned around and I said to my dad, "That's what I'll be doing. What is that?" And he said, "That's a chiropractor, and no, you will not ever be doing that, because it's not paid for by the government, and I would have to pay for that." And so I forgot all about it for many years. Then it came to such an interesting story. Either you'll think that I'm really stupid, or you'll or you'll think that I'm just...
Well, we know you're not very stupid. We know you're super intelligent. So I'm excited to hear about it.
Yeah, so I surrendered. So what happened was, it came in England and the UK at the time. You had to choose your options. So 16, 17 years old, you had to fill out what was called an what was it called, a UCAS or an UCA form or something? I can't remember what it was called. And you had to put your your top 10 university options and the subjects that you wanted to go study at university. And I just, I couldn't do it. I really just couldn't do it. And so all I put down there was chiropractic. And I didn't bother applying for anything else. I didn't, Adam, I kid you not, I didn't even know what chiropractic was. I hadn't done my homework.
Is it very popular? I mean, obviously it's popular here in the US. Is it very popular over in like the UK and in Europe at all?
Well, I mean, it's getting popular now, but at the time, I mean, we're talking about the early 90s. I'm getting up there in age. So
Yeah, you don't.
I'm nearly 50 now, so it's a while ago. So yeah, it wasn't that popular. I went and I met a chiropractor. She didn't really tell me much, and I got into it. And then my first adjustment was actually once I'd already started chiropractic school. And so it was absolutely 100% my divine appointment. And I don't think that I ever realized how beautiful and magnificent, and how chiropractic is absolutely created by God, because we are healing, and we in our philosophy we say that we're healing above, down, inside out, which from a spiritual perspective, the above down alignment is actually connecting to your creator. That's the above down part of the ADIO, above, down, inside out. So I started that way. I practiced in the UK, and then I moved to New York, moved to the US had my practice in New York, built it, I scaled it, I sold it. I've got 3 virtual businesses now.
Mm.
And so, yeah, that's my story. my story is really a story of a spiritual journey, and I do think that as business owners, our businesses are not just a black and white thing. Our businesses are absolutely based. Businesses are led and pulled by our spiritual growth and the energy and alignment that we have.
Yeah. And oftentimes I think for those that do not have that spiritual alignment with their business of like service and purpose and things like that, and it is just about money and a paycheck, they're always going to be chasing something that doesn't fulfill.
Yeah.
My first company that I started was like, it was a mission. It was hard in that particular situation. I found it very hard for me to find the help that I needed in healthcare. And it frustrated me so much that I was like, I'm going to figure out how to create something that I wish I would have had access to and provide that for other people back in 2012 when I launched my first company. And it's always been purpose driven, right? It's the same when it comes to conversations about health and hormone optimization and all that kind of stuff, which is the conversations graduated into personal development and all these other things, right? That we can talk about.
Mm.
But I light up about it, right? I've been talking about the same thing for 20 years and I love to do it and I'll never not want it. I'll never be bored of it. And I think oftentimes that, we miss that as we're going, right? Like, especially your situation where like, hey, pick one of these 10 things you're going to do. So many people are in a career 20, 30, 40 years in, they don't even like it,
Mm.
right? So it's hard to be spiritually aligned when it's like, oh, I got to go to work job. And they're constantly focused on like spending how they're going to spend their time not working, not producing.
Mm.
And it's hard to grow in that standpoint. But the thing that's missing is they just didn't find that alignment, right? Which is something you're talking about, which is super important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's always alignment first, vision first, alignment first, core values first, and finding that inner spark that fulfills. But then what I see with a lot of doctors is that loss of mission is sometimes a reflection of many different things, and sometimes it's actual evolution that they are supposed to make bigger impact and have to, sometimes have a coach like someone like you, someone like me that will actually help them realign, re-engage. What is it now? Like, what is it now for you? But then sometimes it's health. Sometimes it's health that goes down and they are not optimized, physically, biochemically
Yep,
optimized. And then, and then they may have prioritized the wrong way, where they didn't put
for
God
sure.
first, family first, health first, and then mission, because all those things feed into mission and there's a priority. There's a way to prioritize that you don't feel like you lost, as if you were stuck in this practice with your golden handcuffs on because everyone only wants to see you. And so that's where we have to really do a deep dive into what are the systems, but then alignment first, vision first, family. What's your bucket list in your life as well? Like, what do you feel like you missed out on, or what do you feel like you want to do? Like, do you want to travel the world while you're here in this one life? Like, what is it? Like, what is your thing?
Yeah, one of the conversations I have with the docs I work with, and just any kind of entrepreneur, especially as they get, maybe in our age of like that phase, and they kind of reach like a man, do I like what am I doing, right? And helping them get clear, not only on what they actually want, which is something most people struggle with, right? When you ask somebody, I found it's amazing, but I took it for granted that I was always clear on what I wanted, and it maybe came from a certain level of confidence and belief system, but people struggle to understand what they want. So if you're not really focused on what you want, this compelling vision or compelling future, oftentimes you're just kind of stuck in the mundane of the day. And I think a lot of people that build stuff, I was just talking about this yesterday, that we can build from pain and trauma, right? So it could be something like your dad told you you can't do it, you'll never be successful. And so like you want to go out and build this thing to prove him wrong, right? Like there's plenty of people that told me I couldn't do things, which is really where I got a lot of the fuel to go build and almost like that chip on my shoulder to prove things wrong. But unfortunately that fuel source is great, right? Anger, frustration, like I'm going to show them, but it's not a sustainable fuel source, and it requires a lot of energy, exertion to do that versus the switch of the fuel of what's possible, the
Mm.
fuel of a compelling vision that can pull you, right? Pain pushes, a vision pulls, right?
Yeah.
And I'd rather be pulled into a great vision than pushed from pain. And
Yeah.
people, unfortunately, especially physicians that I've worked with, don't even realize that's how they're operating because it's like medical school is so hard. People told them they couldn't do it, or like whatever it might be. Oh, you can't go start your own practice. You should go follow this the more traditional route, or don't go into chiropractic, or don't go into functional medicine, like all these kind of things. And they've, they've found this fuel source of constantly trying to prove people wrong and prove themselves right. But it's exhausting. And you reach a point where you're just like, they've made it, right? Let's say they're making a few $100,000 a year or $500,000 a year, and they've made it. But now they're like, now what? The haters stopped, right? The pain source isn't there. So what they'll do sometimes is they'll go try to find some other pain, disrupt their family, or get advice or some other thing to try to solve a problem, because they've lost vision of what their business could become, whether it's scaling or, like you did, sell it and start another business that's more fulfilling. Talk about where you made that decision in your chiropractic practice to sell, when and why it was the time to sell, and what you wanted to do beyond that.
Again, a godly decision. Just going back a little bit to what you just said, what are we being fueled by? Are we being fueled by pain or purpose and mission? And, the once you realize that your true source of fuel isn't you, it's God, your fuel and your vision and your desire comes from the Sire, which is the King, which is, the creator. God is the um is the vision that pulls you, as opposed to the pain that pushes you. Sometimes it feels like a little bit of both. He gives us some pain in order to propel us. It was that. So I had an interesting experience because, I mean, you already know this about me. I have a very sacred routine that I do every morning, which I will not ever miss, and that is sitting and reading my Bible and then listening and writing on what I hear God speak to me. And
Powerful.
everybody's different, that's what it is for me. And I kept hearing the word consultant, just one word, consultant, for 2 years straight. And then I would walk into my adjustment room, and I used to have, there are different models in chiropractic. I had what we call an open adjustment room. So I would see 5 people at a time. I'd see, many, many people per hour. Sorry, I had 5 tables to see many, many people an hour, like hundreds and hundreds per week. And I would, as soon as I started hearing that word consultant, I would walk into my it's a big room, an adjustment room. And it felt so weird because it felt like my energy and my being was bigger than the room. And I didn't want to say anything for a long time because I thought, wow, that's really egotistical.
Right. We can get caught with believing something's pride, but it's
Yeah.
actually a calling. It's actually God revealing something bigger. And I think it takes, especially in Christianity and faith, there's way more Christians that are going to tell you have an ego or you're prideful than Christians that are like, oh yeah, God's got a bigger calling for you. That's exciting. You should pour into that. And I think being around like-minded believers like you and I to help harness hey, God's kind of telling me this versus, hey, sounds like you're being a little prideful, Sabrina. When really God's like, no, I need you to lead him out of Egypt. What, me? Yeah, you. I need you to go. Right. And so understanding, because that's when I became a believer and started reading the Bible, I'm reading this stuff about power and certainty and dominion and God calling people to do great things. And it confused me because I would go to church and I'd be like, what? Why? Does everyone else, am I reading a different version? But I love that you mentioned that because it's important, because some people will get caught in the story that the enemy's trying to tell them that, oh, you're being prideful, you're being ego, you should be happy. Look at your practice is so much better than most people. Why don't you just be satisfied with this? You're ungrateful, right? But that's not from God. God's saying, no, I got more. I got way more. I built the universe and I want to have you do some great things too.
Yeah, 100%. I've been, something that I had my focus on was my peer group actually over the last few years, because I mean, we hear it all the time that your peer group matters and you become a sum of the 5 people that surround you.
Right.
My gosh, is that true or what? It's so true. And so, I've become very selective about who I spend time with, who I listen to, who I invite in, and where I put my focus, my time, energy, focus, and money. All four of those resources. And so, it makes a difference. Like you said, if someone's speaking life into you and you can hear the voice of God or that voice inside of you saying, no, no, we need to get you out of this room or out of this business. You have to listen. And I mean, gosh, admit took me
Yeah.
2 years. Took me 2 years because I went into that deep discernment that you just spoke about of, is this my ego? Is it, all the imposter syndrome came up? Am I a fraud? Who am I to make to think that I can make an impact. And we all go through it. Like, we all go through it, and then we have to
Sure.
just humble ourselves and be obedient and know that if you're doing it with a heart of service and with love, love is the greatest converter. And I think that you and I are here to ignite fires in people's hearts, and ignite the fire of love and service in people's heart, and the true listening of presence, being very present to hear the voice of God. And I think that's extremely important. I mean, in John, I can't remember what verse, Jesus says to the guy that's actually lame and he's lying down, he can't walk, he can't do anything. He says, "Take up your bed and walk." And to me, that just shows us how we are already healed, and us thinking that we can't walk in business, in life, in our relationships is an illusion, because we can literally just take up our bed and walk. So, that's where I go with it.
I love that. Yeah. And and part of that too, even and similarly, when Jesus healed many people, he asked them, "What do you want?" Right. And so, what would you like? I want to see again.
Yeah.
Cool. You're healed. And that's why I said even earlier, most people struggle to actually be clear on what they want. Part of it's a disconnect in their belief in themselves. And I believe the belief in God that can help create that thing. And so even for me as an entrepreneur, when I looked at, on paper, barely graduated high school, no college, didn't have a bunch of formal training. So I continued to have a story in the back of my mind, even though I was, I'm building a multi-million-dollar healthcare company. There's still a story in my head that I'm not qualified. When's it going to fail? When's it going to fall apart? When is like the trick is up. And it wasn't until I came to the Lord that I realized God's like, look, I'm doing this. I just need you to be obedient. I've sustained it. I created this. I created you. I gave you every desire of your heart. I'm called. And I was like, oh. And this burden came off my back of me trying to figure everything out, me trying to solve everything. Where now I just turn to God and I'm like, what do you want me to do? Sometimes he says, be still. Sometimes he says, go. And having that relationship that you're talking about and that direct communication is so important.
Yeah, 100%. There's a difference between the push through, which is what burns us out, the push through and the burnout, and living under the grace of God. How do you know? I'm going to ask you, Adam. I've got my own answer, but how do you know when you are living under the grace of God with anything and everything, business, the rest of your life? Like, what is it for you that is the sign that He's actually blessing whatever it is that you're doing?
It's a great question. And I think it really is, it's a flow. I can feel a flow of things. Now, it doesn't mean it's not hard and it doesn't mean it's not challenging, but my focus isn't on the degree of pain, suffering, or the hardness. My focus ends up becoming on the lesson. So like, what am I learning here? Like God may lead me down a path that I don't feel is ideal so that I can learn something that I can go contribute later down the road. So I think it's a mindset shift of understanding that like, if I'm not winning, I'm learning. But there's a flow of these things and it just starts being revealed and God will show you. And one of the things I pray about too is encouragement. If I'm on the right path, show me. If I'm not, God, just let me know gently, gently.
Gently.
I don't need a baseball bat over the head. Just give me a word where I can put some in my life or give me a verse, whatever it is. And I think that's it. That things should be a flow. And if there's friction, it's going to cause me to just question, is this hard? Which for me, I love hard things. So it's rare that's where I stop, but like, shouldn't, if you knock, the door will open, right? If you seek, you'll find it. So there's a flow and God promises that if you're on the right path. And I think sometimes having that internal conversation with yourself of like, am I doing this like with good intent? If I'm buying the new car, am I buying the new car to like prove something to somebody, or am I buying it because it brings me joy? Am I want to expand my business because I want to prove to somebody, is there a positive or a negative reality behind the purpose? And you'll understand if you're kind of in line with God or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Similar for me, I think. So, yeah, the flow, the synchronicities. And for me, what I find is that he shows us miracles, wonders, signs, and miracles. And they could be small, they could be big, it could be, maybe a bird. Or I'm so very feminine, even when I run my business and when I run my life, maybe a bird will fly by, or I'll
Yeah.
see thing in the trees and the sun glistening through the trees or the notes.
You know, it sounds funny for me that you're mentioning it. There's something for me too, like it sounds silly, but I bet other people agree with this. Almost like the feeling of cold air. I don't
Yeah.
know if you've ever done that where it's like all of a sudden I'm just like, is that the air conditioning? Like just feeling something in a moment of thought, right? Of deep thought. But even it's stuff too, like these little, I call them God nudges, right? But they're like last night, we were kind of watching a movie as a family. And my daughter came and sat by me, and there's just this feeling that came over. It wasn't something I was seeking, right? That's the other part too. Like when I'm looking for something, it may not be as profound as when I find something I'm not looking for, right? So it's just my daughter sat next to me, and I just felt this overwhelming place of gratitude.
Mm.
Where in that moment, I was just like, God, you are so good. Like, I don't need anything. Like, you know, there's a part where I can feel like, man, am I ungrateful? Like the moments, right? Or even my kids like arguing with each other. Sometimes it's funny, and I'm like so glad, or they're like giving me, or they're kind of talking back with like a little smart witty, and I'm like, God, how awesome that you gave me like amazing kids. Like they're so wonderful. They're just perfect. I love it. And those are those little things too. I think that are just powerful too. To me, it's almost like this feeling I wasn't looking for that shows up in a place I wasn't looking for. And in that moment, I'm just, so drop into a place of gratitude for all that God's.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always a surprise, and it's the best gift and the best surprise ever, just those feelings, those sensations, and then yeah, I think gratitude is probably one of the biggest ones for me too, that it just hits me, and, I had a really good one.
Hear about it.
Yeah, I was when you're just going about your business, living your day, and then you just get hit or a thought flashes. Like in chiropractic, we call them THOT. It's thought, but it's THOT, which are inspirational or thought flashes when you have that amazing connection above, down, inside out. And yeah, I was just, I mean, we all have like many hundreds, thousands of them. Yeah, I was just doing my thing. And then I started crying. I didn't feel sad. I wasn't feeling anything. I started crying because the Lord was saying, "Oh, there are still more lives to serve and to save." And he started showing me people with no water, with no food, with no electricity, with no access to education. And he was saying, "This is who you're supposed to serve, as well as everyone else." And so, by not going bigger with the vision and not scaling, not doing all the things that I can do, it's just, laziness or I wouldn't say laziness, but not going bigger with the vision. There are all these potentially thousands of people who could be living their divine appointment by just having food, water, and access to education. So there was that one, and then I had my biggest one actually. My
And
biggest,
some that's a faith thing, right? So some of that is a faith. Our faith is asking for us to expand, right? Like in Genesis, where it talks about expand your tents, stretch the ropes out, like basically like make more room for right. And God throughout the Bible, God promises these blessings, but He's reminding us that our vessel has to become bigger, right? And so like in order for me to have a to help maybe all of those people, I have to increase the size of my vessel.
yeah,
I don't have to necessarily figure out how to fill the vessel. He'll do that. I just got to remember that my vessel needs to get bigger.
yeah,
And sometimes that takes away some of the complication of like, well, God wants me to expand my business. Like, how am I supposed to do? Like, you have to just start with the decision that you're going to, and realize there's a purpose behind it that you want to serve because He just put something like that in your heart, right? And then all of a sudden, with that trust and that faith, you see, like, I mean, my life miracle. But the business things in business, stuff like that, like it is miracle, all God, not my work. And I love sharing that stuff too. But it was to your point, it was just that aha moment or that thought that's like, we gotta go bigger, right? And really I believe as Christians, it's our duty to go big, which is why I started my mentoring that I do where I speak to it's called Revival Today executives, teaching Christians about like we should all be multi-millionaires. Imagine what we can do for the kingdom. Imagine how many people we can help and save serve versus people that don't care about that. They're just after the money in the world. So I believe it's our duty.
yeah. I mean, it starts with you saying yes. To him. And it starts with you saying yes and then to realizing it's actually not about you. It's absolutely not about you. Who cares if you're afraid to go and speak on a stage? We're doing a podcast now. Who cares if we don't know what we're going to say in the next few minutes and we don't know whether we're going to say something dumb or impactful? I mean, I don't know. It doesn't matter because we're not here for us. We're here because God put us here and he put us here to serve. And so it's absolutely not about us. You came from basically nothing. You came from nothing. And look at where you are now, living this beautifully abundant life, which is a spiritual life. The abundant life is a spiritual life, and prosperity comes with that.
Yes. I love that. And I think, and there's that other part of being able to give back, right? So it's like, I was in a conversation yesterday. We were talking about that in a conversation with doctors wanting to grow in order to contribute and give more, right? And I was like, look, if you make 500 grand a year and your living expenses are $450,000 a year, there's not a ton left over. If you're making 10 million a year and your living expenses are 600,000, it's a lot easier to write a 7-figure check,
Yeah.
or it's a lot easier to feed 10,000 kids a year if you want to. And in that purpose, if you'll align with it, God will provide the path. 100%. I believe. I've seen it in my own life. And I think that's one of the biggest things too, of why we need to just continue to be big, because, when we look at who our Heavenly Father is, who we serve, we're made in his image. He created the universe and he didn't stop. Right. There's a day of rest, right? We talked about that in the beginning, but like he's still doing it. Right. And that's also why I don't really believe in retirement either. I believe until my last breath, I'm going to go do what he's called me to do every single day, whatever that might be, to continue to contribute, to serve, because I know that when I get to eternity, I want that celebration to be massive, because this life is like a layover. That's how I look at it. It's a layover. And are you going to be grumpy and crabby at your layover? Or are you going to be, pouty and rude to the lady at the check-in desk or whatever? Or are you going to be like joyful,
Yeah.
excited? This is a new place. I mean, like there's just a way we can look at it from a perspective standpoint. And I think if people can grasp that perspective, it just makes life more fun. You're just more filled with joy. You're a bucket of joy. So talk about how maybe you share that as much as possible.
It's actually funny that you use the word joy because one of my businesses is actually called Joyful Life.
Well, I know,
It's funny.
I know you
Yeah,
just have so much joy, even in your tone, your voice,
yeah.
your words,
It's
and quite such a gift to talk to you. But share like where that comes from.
Yeah, so it took a while. So it's Joyful Life Functional Health Solutions, which is a functional medicine practice, which is virtual again. And it took me a while with that one again in prayer. And the Lord said, you are going to be in this business, you're going to be focused on one of the fruit of the Spirit, and that is joy. And so, our tagline is where joy meets health. That's the tagline for that practice. It's like joy meets health. And that's the focus. The focus is on, does this bring you joy? And with functional, it's like, how do we create the biochemistry in that person's body, which is ultimately health? Whether we're looking at neurotransmitters, hormones, gut, whatever it is, all of that will lead to the divine appointment. So the practices used to, my original, which came from me, not from God, my original thought was, oh, it's going to be a women's health practice because there's so much buzz now about perimenopause and menopause. I mean, it's all over. This is what the functional medicine doctors are talking about. But actually, what the Lord showed me was you're going to be focused on joy, and it's a longevity practice, but it's not longevity that you think it is. It's not earthly longevity. It's the eternal life. So
Love that.
huge shift for me was, what? What do you mean? Like, what do you mean? How do I do that? And so, he gives you little tidbits and sometimes big messages as to how that is going to be orchestrated. But yeah, it's a beautiful, yeah, I do like to keep joy at the center as much as possible.
Do you find it hard sometimes, like when you feel like God gives you a vision or a powerful word, in like the steps of execution? I'm like a go run. I used to be more, now I slow down, but I used to be like, I feel like God gave me an aha thing, and then I want to go out and just do it. Right. And what I realized as well is, action matters. Right. So whether you like thought write it down with a pen and paper, start journaling it. You could reach out to me and say, hey, Adam, God spoke this, what do you think? Right. Like there's ways to do it. I think that's why having a great circle matters. But what I found too is that when I'm creating stuff that God has showed me to do, I have to make sure that I leave room for him to actually participate. And
Yeah.
that's something where he kind of convicts me oftentimes, where I'm like doing it all. And I feel like God's standing there like, hey, this was my idea. I want you to go in this direction.
It's
Are
good.
you going to let me help? Because like your way is not going to be as good as mine.
Yeah.
Right. And so, where you're like, "Oh, God told me to go here. I better grab a bike." God's like, no, I have a private jet waiting for you, bozo. Can you wait 5 minutes for the email to come through? And because his way is always higher than ours. And so if you struggled with that, where God gives you a direction and you're like all in, but you really forget, it's like you got the message and left him to go do it yourself. Right. And so I struggle with that for time. And now I try to slow down. I'm like, God, I want you right here with me. Go in front, behind, I literally picture myself like holding Jesus's hand, walking with me, being like, is this it? Are we on the right path? Because I want that certainty in my steps with him.
Yeah, I'm laughing because this is so familiar to me. I'm like really holding back the laugh at the moment so that I can speak. So goes both ways because I've had times where he's given me such big vision that I've actually wanted to go hide under a rock. I'm like, what? No, not me. I can't do it. I don't know if I can do it. And says that aside.
Plenty of people in the Bible did the same thing,
Oh my
right? I mean, we
God.
think of like Moses, like tried talking God out of it 6, 7 times. Like, Abraham, he's one that went, but there's so many people in the Bible that questioned God's divine appointment because of their lack of belief in the qualifications of doing it. God's like, I know you can't do it, but
Yeah.
I need you to go do it so I can do what I'm going to do to create the miracle, create the testimonial.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so I've gone I've gone both ways. So there's the I can't believe you said this. I don't think I can do it because then I'm forgetting that I'm not doing it. Like I'm actually not doing it. And to exactly like you where I'll go, all right, so these are my steps because a vision without action is just a dream. We all know that. So I'll go, okay, these are my steps based on everything that I've known, over the last like 25 years of having businesses. I'm like, okay, so I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do that. This is the structure, this is the way, these will be the team, the team players that I need, these will be their KPIs, these will be the goals. And then I have to throw it all away because I didn't stop and I didn't pause and it's all just like rubbish. I'll have to the slowing down and the pause is actually more important than the go. Because like you said, he might have a private jet waiting when you're about to book economy.
Yeah. And even the pause, like you mentioned too, is important because I want him in all of these decisions. And there's sometimes where I'm like, hey, look, God, is this what you want me to do? If you don't, I'll pivot. Like, I need you to reveal something to me, right? It could be, let's say you're launching something in the business and you're not seeing the fruit yet, but and sometimes again, like I said, when I'm not fully connected to the spirit and I'm not seeing fruit and I'm in the flesh, I'm not looking for the lesson, right? That he might be trying to teach me in the time that I haven't seen the fruit yet, right? And we understand this, like from seed to harvest is time. Now God can do a miracle instantly, but for the most part, there is going to be a place of waiting and
Yes.
doing things until we start seeing the sprout and then the fruit, and God talks about in the Bible. But other times where I want to come to him and like, hey, listen, like, is this what you want me to do? And I'll ask for encouragement, and he always delivers. Might be like, hey, do you want me to do this thing? And then like the next day it's like a couple deals close. I'm like, all right, cool, that God's with it. I'm just forgetting to see whatever lesson he's trying to teach me. And so it isn't like, God gave me an idea, all right, I'm going to spend some time with him. I'm going to help put together some of the game plan and then go. I need to continue to check in with him.
Yes.
Right. So,
Definitely. I mean, I've cultivated a level of detachment. Right. And it's been extremely important to do that because I mean, this sounds horrible to people I have a relationship with, but I keep my relationships and my attachments loose. I keep my attachments to outcomes in business loose. because sometimes things change and, he opens doors, he closes doors, and it's our job to follow and be obedient. And sometimes it's an extremely tough road to walk. I mean, we were talking about ease and grace and how do you know it's not all, what I was saying, like birds and sunlight and everything else. You have to put in the work and it's tough and it stretches you and you end up growing your spiritual armor and your business acumen.
There's a wilderness, right? There's almost always going to be some sort of wilderness. And in the wilderness is your ability to prove to God, but into yourself, like the resilience you can create that maybe you didn't have prior to, because the thing he's calling you to do will crush you if you're not ready.
Yeah.
And so like having that's like wisdom when you're in the spirit. In the flesh, you're like, God, I thought you told me to do this. Why didn't you, we're not seeing that we're actually in the wilderness there to learn something about ourselves in order to receive the gift he's trying to bring to us on the other side of it. And it takes a lot of time with him to understand that.
Mhm. Yeah, takes a lot of courage. It takes boldness at times and courage. Most of all, it takes humility. And really, I remind myself all the time that I'm nothing. We could get crushed like ants tomorrow or today. We could lose it all, and we're just nothing. And so it's important to know that we're just these little specks, and we are there. We are living. We have to be grateful that we're even here, and that we get to live this life. And I think humility, surrender, and obedience, are probably the three areas that have to be observed the most.
Yeah. And there's two parts of that, right? So when you think of like humility, surrender, and obedience, there's a part of humility to God, but also I can't be too humble to not believe I can go do what he's asked me to do.
Yes.
Right. And that obedience is also like obedient to what God's called me to do, but the faith to be obedient when I don't see a way.
Mm.
And then the surrender understanding too of like that's probably the hardest one, I think, for most people, is realizing that we have to process, like search ourselves for what we're unwilling to lay up,
Mm.
what we're unwilling to, it could be a story, it could be a rule, it could be some belief system that has to shift in order to receive what God's trying to give to us. Right. It's not like you have to surrender porn or addiction, or like it could be a surrendering, just like you might think like $10 million a year is too much money. And I have to surrender that idea because God's like, dude, I want to take you this $10 million a year income because I know you're going to take that 2 million and put it into the kingdom to help all these people. But I can't help build that business there because you still won't give that belief system up that's been rooted in you for 40 years. Right. And so there's some of these other things that we can wrestle with that seem godly, right? Because it can be, I've had many Christians try to correct me on the humility side. And listen, I read about who God says I am, and I'm very humble to God, but I'm not going to walk around feeling like a piece of crap
Yeah.
because if I can, or if I feel that way, I'm not going to feel like I can be used when I feel like I'm a child of God. There's a David inside of me. There's an Abraham inside of me. There's a Moses inside of me. Like there's a Paul inside of me. They were all regular people, right? But my faith and my ability to surrender and be obedient is going to determine that destiny of what God's called me to do, and my ability to be able to walk that path. And some of it starts with just our internal belief system.
Yeah, it does. You have to do the work and you have to identify it. And, for me, again, it's the peer group is extremely important to me because sometimes someone else will see it in you and be able to speak it out loud. And then at other times, I was actually coaching at a conference this last weekend and I was surrounded by just such incredible Christian doctors who are just leaders. These are yeah, as you're saying, they're multi-millionaire doctors and, sitting with them and they inspired me just by who they were, right? They didn't have to we weren't talking about me, we weren't talking about them and what our belief systems were. I was inspired just by being in their presence and vice versa. We were inspiring each other and by being together, we elevated, we've all come back on fire this week,
Yeah.
extremely on fire. in multiple ways. And like you said, the money part, like the money part is something I really believe strongly in, as having open conversations about money. We all have our different stories and we have our different relationship with money, as if money is a person. Do you squash it? Are you worthy of it? Are you, same thing. You have a relationship with money, and it's a disservice to the kingdom to only earn just enough to cover your bills.
Selfish.
Yeah, it is.
How can you feed the poor if you're the poor? And Jesus taught on money more than just about anything else he taught on in the Bible, because he knew the struggles we would have forever in this life with money. So I gave so many examples of it. And one thing you mentioned too that I love is a lot of people miss this, and I think there's a lot of believers that or non-believers that talk about this and don't understand that can have both, is energy. Like when you're around, I mean, just you and I, anytime we're talking, like there's an energy there that's different than most conversations, right? And when you're in with, I kind of call it like spirit-filled believers, right? Like I can be in the presence of other church people and I don't feel that energy. I can be in the presence of other spirit-filled believers and it's a different energy.
Yeah.
It's like you're somewhere else on earth together or
Yes.
somewhere else in the universe together, which is powerful, right? You can relate to that because you get it. And I think there's a lot of people that they're like, I don't really subscribe to that Christian Jesus stuff. I'm more of like an energy person. I'm like, it's there too. You don't have to have, there's no energy in Christianity. And there's some Christians that you start talking about energy and they think it's woo woo. It isn't, right?
No,
Like all of this stuff has existed even when, I think the sick woman grabbed Jesus's,
she's wrong.
there's an energy that was released, an energy that was felt. So like understand that the energy also exists, but the source is God, right? And if we're willing to believe, give our lives to Christ, repent, be baptized, we get filled with the Holy Spirit. And
Yeah.
that's a different energy that other spirit-filled believers can feel. And even people that do not have that can feel it from you. And I think I shared with you recently when I was at a men's conference and we did this exercise where just putting hands on other men's shoulders and just looking at them in their eye. And
Mm.
before we did that, I was really asking God, I'm like, God, I want to see these men through your eyes. I want to see them how you see them. Don't forget how I see them, whether they're tall, short, overweight, look like they have money, look like they don't. I don't want to see them in the flesh. I only want to see them in the spirit. And that energy, putting my hands on these men, almost 100% of them, tears. No words spoken, it's just like the first time they felt seen and almost heard with no words. And that's an energy from the Holy Spirit that goes into us because we're all God's creation. You can deny it all you want to, but it's a lot more fun when you receive it and accept it. And it's powerful. So I'm glad you brought up the energy side of it.
Yeah, it's important. Energy is everything, right? So the more we're filled with purpose and with the spirit, and part of that is the physical, making sure that your body is treated as a temple, and that is biblical. We are instruments. Once you're filled, your energy or the energetics of you becomes way more expansive. And so, I mean, you'll see people and I'm sure you're one of those people where they walk into the room, they haven't said anything, and they've changed the room. That's a central pattern generator. They've generated that energy. You can measure the field of the heart. It goes miles, I think. It goes a long way. So, you know, it it isn't unbiblical, unchristian. This is just the way we're made. And
And it's not prideful either. It's a direct connection to the Holy Spirit. There's an energy of when you walk with God, God, you're on a mission with God. There's no uncertainty. There's a confidence, but there's also humility. And in that energy, regardless of what you look like, but how you look can also help with how the energy is perceived, is matters to, like you said, walking into a room and changing change the temperature in the room. Like you can literally do that by having that energy. There's a part of our body that doesn't, in our mind, in our personal energy, that doesn't understand, like we can't quantify it as much, but we know, we're like, what is it about that? I don't even know who they are. It's not even their outfit or their shoes or something that we'd think of in the flesh, but there's an absolute energy that can just, your presence alone can give out and also receive back from. And it's amazing. And I would have never believed that stuff until I started learning about it as well. And it's all Bible based.
It is. I mean, the energy of love and service and being clear in your vessel and being filled with the Spirit will instantly create light. Because Jesus is light, and so we're very often having encounters, and we don't know what to call. We don't know what to call the
Good.
encounter, but that's the encounter. The encounter is seeing the light in another person and being the light and being able to transmit and emanate that radiance through you, which is the radiance of the Holy Spirit and the radiance of Jesus. He literally comes through us. He is literally our heart. Your voice and your words, as much as we can remove our fleshy human selves, our desire is for our voices to not be our own, but to be His. Our hearts to be not our own, but to be His. Our lives, it's same thing, because we are created in light, and it just is, and that is who we are. We are these beautiful light-filled beings, here to serve, here to transform, here to awaken hearts and awaken people to their mission, and to bring them home, like bring people home to their creator, like removing all the interference and bringing them home.
Yeah, and I think there's this love and co-creation. That's something that I appreciate the most. Is like when just in the presence, and co-creation could be you and I having a conversation that generates ideas, perspective, whether it's for someone else or for each one of us, and like that's what we're designed to do. And I think of like we look at this world every night before I go to bed, and I pray, when I'm praying kind of for the world, and I'm just thinking of, man, the pain and the challenges. I mean, think across the globe, like even like you shared, like your vision of serving these people that are hungry and don't drink, and realizing, like I think you and I obviously agree, like if we could just get everybody to have this Christ-like heart,
Mm.
we want to come together and see each other as one church, and that no brother or sister should go without it. Like there's a way that that happens, and that's the hope of the church, right? And I think sometimes we lose a little bit of sight of it, but it's a powerful thing. I think, but when your heart is filled with that belief, no matter where you're at, there's an energy about you that can change the way someone else feels without words, right? And it's a powerful thing.
Yeah, tremendously powerful. Yeah, it's the beingness, and there has to be a willingness behind the beingness.
That's right. Well
Again,
said.
it's always the yes. It's always the yes. Like always saying yes, and yeah, the energetics are everything. I mean, frequency, vibration, tone, energy, they're real. It's real. And you know, in our businesses, in our relationships, we are bringing that. And I think that there is such a thing as we talk about being hygienic, being clean with the way that we're being in the world. There's energy etiquette. There's an etiquette about how you conduct yourself, where you put your energy, who you're being, and the alignment too. If you're misaligned in frequency, vibration, tone, and energy, everybody knows, including you. And you know, that force of influence, or whether you can influence or impact, plummets, plummets. You could be doing all the things, like all the right things, or all the things that you think are the right things. And if you're not aligned, then none of it's going to work.
So is that some stuff that you help your clients with, that kind of alignment? Can you share a little bit about, I know we're getting towards the end, and I'd like you to share a little bit about what you do professionally too, for those listeners that may be interested in working with you. Talk a little bit about that, because I know that you help people with that.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I have the three different businesses. I have a virtual functional medicine business that I just spoke about, and it's still about alignment. I want to help my patients be aligned in their lives, but then that comes through them clearing their temple. The other two businesses are actually coaching businesses. I coach with and for the Remarkable Practice. That's where we coach chiropractors exclusively. And even functional medicine doctors who are also chiropractors, anyone that's a chiropractor, we can coach. And then the other one is called Phoenix. Phoenix is my own baby. It's coaching professionals, but we align with both coaching businesses with the Remarkable Practice, who are, oh my gosh, they're incredible, incredible. I'm so grateful to be a part of this organization. We coach people in the US, Europe, New Zealand, and Australia. It all starts with vision, and with alignment. And then with my own coaching company, which is called Phoenix, it really is about rebirth and an alignment with who you're meant to be. All of it is definitely looking at where is the energy, where's the energetics. Sometimes we don't say that out loud. I always say it with Phoenix. Like, I'm always talking about the energetics and whether we are in an energy rich or a very um juicy, rich state versus are we going through the flow, going through are we in automatic? Are we just defaulting to automatic? I get up, I brush my teeth, I do this, I do that, in business as well.
Going through the ocean, lack of intention.
Yes. So that's always where we begin. Always where we begin is alignment and energy growth, evolution. And it always starts with spirit. Do my clients have to be Christian? No, absolutely not. I do work best with people that believe in a higher power. I don't work well with people that don't. So definitely say that. I don't think I can work so well with someone that doesn't believe anything, because the energetics and the vision and the mission and the heart of service will always come from a higher power.
Yeah, because again, same thing with my coaching and consulting and some of those things. It's easier. It is just easier when it's someone that has an aligned belief, and it's really hard with someone that does not have that belief, because the reality is their ability to have a perspective beyond their personal power is impossible because they don't believe it. If I don't believe, nothing can get done unless I do it. When I believe the universe and God and all the energy in the world is all working for me and it aligned with me, I just have to get myself aligned to be in the flow of it. Like, that thinker can do crazy things, right? So, and it's very hard to find somebody who's super successful that does not believe that in some thought.
Oh, and you can't give someone else their vision, right? It has to come from them. And so we're always looking at, well, what does success look like to you? And that might be different to what success looks like for me. For me, it does mean scaling and going big, because I have that vision to help all these different, people all over the planet. But then, for someone else, it might be success looks to them like having a lot of time, downtime, and being able to do other things and be with kids and etc. Which, I think you can do both. You definitely can do both. But everyone's different, and I think we have to honor that. Honor that there's a vision for everyone, and it's not the same for anyone. And it's fine.
Too many people aren't living their vision because they never took the time to create it, right? Because they were never given permission. And sometimes I think, having a coach that's going to help give you, I kind of joke and say most of my clients in the beginning they're borrowing certainty from me, and they're getting permission to have a vision
Yeah.
beyond what they've already had. Right. And so the goal is to help extract that out of them so they can see it, like, versus like, oh, that'd be nice, to like, holy crap, I could probably do that. Right. And then they're like, there's an attachment now to this new path. And then, we kind of trust God to do the rest as long as we'll do the work.
Yeah.
And it's exciting.
100%. Something I've identified, this is like a funny thing, is that some of the people who are void of vision or too scared are numbing themselves, and they're doing it with their Netflix, their junk food. There are different ways to numb and to deny your vision and to not be going for it. And those are the ways. It always comes through numbness, disassociation, and separating yourself and secluding yourself always. And when, like you were saying, co-creation's important. Checking in with someone that you think is like-minded or who can actually bring you up. you want to talk to someone who can raise you up and speak life over and help you expand. For anyone listening to this, check in with yourself. Are you numbing yourself in any way? Are you denying what you know needs to happen, what you know is true for you? Are you not moving when you need to be moving? And I mean that both, energetically, not actually taking the action, but also physically. If we need to move, we need to move our bodies because when we move our bodies, energy flows. So, there are a lot of different things I could say on this one, but yeah, the numbness and separation. We're supposed to live in community and be in community and have people to talk things out with and co-create with, and it can only elevate you.
And I think there's almost that voice of everything. I believe everyone has a voice that's calling them to something great,
Yes.
higher than they're currently at. But that voice can become overwhelming to people that don't understand how to take action, and maybe they're not very disciplined. And that's where I think they go down the path. And I spent way too many years of my life with alcohol of like, I couldn't wait to have that drink to like knock the edge off of the day, to like have this false reality of like, and then realizing like how that was suppressing my growth. And when I quit drinking like 8.5 years ago and started to see that like this hockey stick of
Mm.
success, because it forced me to stay in it. I wasn't taking this false break with, or it's like you said, Netflix or food or something else, right? It could
Everything.
be anything
Yeah,
that's not moving you. Like you said, check in with yourself. Like I did stop and I was like, what do I want? Well, I'm like, well, I want to be like very financially successful. I want to have, a marriage that like everybody would look up to. I want to be the father that I never had. And I'm like, so anything that doesn't fit that is out and be in the great health. So it's like, I got to stop things that are not good for my health. I got to start doing more things that are good for my health. I got to stop doing things that might hurt my marriage or my family. I got to start doing things that are going to make those better. I got to stop doing things that might hurt my financial situation. I got to start
mhm.
doing right to start and stop. And it's like you said, it's just taking the time. And it can be super uncomfortable, right? You and I are obviously growth minded people with this coach, lead people through. So
It's
it's
so
like
uncomfortable.
it's just regular conversation for you and I. And to me, like the conversations that I don't like having sports and weather and like politics. Like, dude, who cares? Like, it's not directly affecting your life or the opportunity for myself to grow. I don't want to talk about it. And so I think for people even just to get around other people that can have those enlightening, uplifting conversations is vital. And here's the deal: people that drag you down, get them out. I don't care if you have the same last name, share the same blood type. Like, they got to go. I can't have these people in my life. For a small little tidbits, I can, but not a significant amount of time.
Yeah, they've gotta go. The cake's gotta go. I don't have cable. I don't have t and
I
so,
watch. I
um,
watch. I like to watch a little Netflix show every now and then.
every now and then, but I actually don't know how people have time because I don't. Like, I
I'm a,
but I know that it exists because everyone's doing it, but
my wife
not
jokes like
anyone's doing.
what's funny about me is I have like a very obsessive personality. So like whatever I'm doing, I'm all in. Like
Yeah,
I'll work 12 hours, 14 meetings, like love it all week. And then like Saturday, so my Sabbath is 4 p.m. Saturday
yeah,
to 4 p.m. Sunday. I will not work. I won't take a work email. I won't take a work call. And sometimes I could lay down and watch like a back-to-back movie.
yeah.
And like my wife, she can't sit still for like 30 minutes during like hours. But on the weekend, like I can just chill and rest. And I do it with no guilt or shame because I know I let it rip. Right. And God said rest. Right. So I've tried to force myself Saturday, 4 p.m., Sunday, 4 p.m. That's my Sabbath. It's my seventh day, my day of rest. And I will, and it's funny because I do that, and I think I need that level of rest to like sustain what I do during the week because I go crazy hard, and I think some people have to find that. Too often we're resting too much, right, or we're not doing enough. But I think the other part of it too, and that's where some of the most amazing ideas come from. When I'm just totally shut down, or I'm in kind of like I call it, zombie mode
Yeah.
versus even the intentional morning work and the morning routine stuff. There's still some intention there, or versus just like fully unplugging. So I like to do it. I think some people can get carried away, cater do anything like that. I think that's
Vacations and rest. You have to because your creativity flows once you do that. Otherwise, you get stale. You get stale if you don't stop. So there's a rhythm, and you have to observe your rhythms.
Yeah, I got a vacation coming up. We leave Sunday for like 5 days, and I'll hang out some downtime. I'll probably, I'll still want to do some work because it fulfills me, but there'll also be some of that time where I think I'll have some cool creativity come to me that I can start putting together, that I'll come back from vacation and go, flying like a race car into that new thing that I think God will show me.
Yes.
Well, listen, if someone wanted to work with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, there are different ways because there are different businesses. So chiropractors would get in touch with me through, they could go to the website, theremarkablepractice.com. Anyone that wants to coach that is not a chiropractor, they can contact me through, even for functional as well. They can contact me either through Facebook or Instagram right now, and the handle is Dr. Sabrina Gya. So those are the two best ways, or through our functional medicine, our website, which is joyfullifefunctionalhealth.com.
We'll put all that in the show notes. And if you want, if you know me, you can reach out to me and I'll hook you up with Sabrina too. We're
Yeah.
good friends.
It's hard not to find me.
Once you find her, it's a super blessing because I know that I feel blessed that we're friends and that I know you and that you're someone I can always count on to lift me up too. So thank you for friendship and the relationship. You're awesome. I love you. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Grateful to have you here. Any last words that you have, Sabrina, before we hop?
I'm grateful for you too in my life. So, I just pray that we planted some seeds and that we created a little bit of fire and that we ignited some light in people's hearts. Those are my final words. It's just that.
I believe we did. I stand with you in believing that as well. And so we thank everybody that tuned in and watched this or listened to the show. Please like, share with a family member, subscribe to the 1% Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Adam Lamb. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the 1% Doctor. Please be sure to subscribe to the show where you're able to consume more podcasts, get more value, and learn more about doctors potentially just like you. Please tell a friend, review the show, and we'll see you in the next episode.